Phaser, and we're going to get on the other side Phaser, which is what I typed out. Welcome back to Arcade. I am Super Tommy, and in this video we're going to look at creating a Colyseus real-time multiplayer game server to use with a Phaser 3 game. Now the game we're making is Ludo Party. It's a board game, which is going to be a good game for you to learn how to use Colyseus. So we're not doing too much of the client-side interpolation for positioning, but we're going to go over all the communicating with the server. Now in this video, we're going to do mostly setting up the server within an existing Phaser project. And so we're using our Arcade Phaser 3 TypeScript parcel template, which you can find at GitHub, github.com/arcade. And let's see here, we have Phaser through, where is it? Phaser 3 TypeScript parcel template. Now we've used this template in many videos before, so we're not going to go over setting that up. All the instructions are here. We are going to show you how to set up a Colyseus server inside this project and how we should generally organize it to make things easier to reason about later. So we have this source folder, and then we have our scenes and our main.ts file, which we create our Phaser game. We have it running right now. This is just the general scene that the test scene that we have when we start. It's this hello world scene. So first, let's actually move things into a, let's call it the client folder. So we're going to have a server and we're going to have a client. So inside source, let's make a new folder called client. And we're going to move all of these things into client. So that's the scenes folder, the index.html, and the main.ts. Right? So, okay, good. Scenes, client, and now let's just make another one so that VS Code will not, yeah, there we go. So now we have a client and a server. And the rest of this can stay roughly the same. So we have that. So now let's go to our package.json here. You see this is not going to work because we're going to source index, but that doesn't exist. So we want to go source client index. Then let's run this. Actually, we probably have to terminate the terminal. So let's open a terminal here. Terminal. All right, npm run start. It's going to, let's see. Multiplayer dist has been removed. Yep, that's right. Oh no. So what's this error? Yeah, change that. Bundle. Oh, yep. Now we change the build client. All right, let's go over this again. So we need to change our start, not our build. We'll need that too, but for now we only need it for our start. All right, npm run start. So it's going to be on a different port here because we're already running 8,000. Did it auto do itself? No. Okay, so we'll just go to port 60 to 501. This probably won't happen for you. We're just running, we have another terminal outside of full screen here that is, so it's still doing it, that is running. All right, so there it is. So parcel gives us a different port when we are trying to use a port that's already being used. So no big deal there. So we just have a different port, but yours will probably still be 8,000. Okay, so now we have that. So that's still working. So now we want to add our server stuff in here. So let's look at Colyseus. And I can be smaller. There we go. And so let's look at the docs here. So they have a template project that you can use. And let's see. This is just about Colyseus, which is great. Come here, getting started. So they have this examples project, but you want to create a bare bones Colyseus project. They have this npm init using Colyseus app to create it. But instead of doing that, since we already have this project, we're just going to look at their TypeScript project and take this stuff and put it into our project. Now let's look at what is in their package.json. So we need to install these things and these things. So let's go here, close our terminal window for a sec. So we're going to ignore the load test. We don't need that right now. Types for Express, using a TS Node, and TypeScript. So we have TypeScript. So let's copy those. So these are our dev dependencies. Okay, and then the dependencies will take Colyseus monitor. We're not going to use Colyseus social. That is for social logins. We need Colyseus cores. And we'll take Express JWT, although we probably don't need Express JWT. The Java Web Tokens, we'll just not take that one. Okay. Next, open the terminal. I want a new terminal. How do I show the terminal? Right. Thought I did that last time. Oh, right. Okay. So let's do npm install. That should install the things we just added. And we'll let that go. Okay. And now let's see. Okay. Did npm install. So now we need to add the code that starts this up. So that was the package.json's dependencies for Colyseus in this example project. Look at their TS config. I think it's going to be mostly similar to what we already have. Their outer is in lib, which, let's see, we can also use a different one for them. Let's check right here what their run is. So let's make another TS config. We're going to call this tsconfig.server.json. And we are going to just take this exactly. You can always adjust it for whatever settings you need. Let's format. Okay. And let's here, we're going to add a new script here. Let's call this start server. And so they're using TS Node, I think. Double check here. TS Node dev. So TS Node dev, that. Now we want to give it the tsconfig.server. So let's look at TS Node dev. I think I can just pass in -- project. But let's see. Let's see what flags, what option flags do I have? Here we go. Let's see. All right, it's not here, but I'm pretty sure we can just pass in -- project. And what that does is it tells TS Node to use, let's see, to use a different tsconfig.json. So what we can do is this -- project, and we're going to use tsconfig.server.json. So when we run npm run start server, it's going to start up the Colyseus server with the tsconfig.server.json file, which is this, which is what we took from the Colyseus TypeScript example project or starter project. Now source index. Let's take their index file here. We're going to go into server. We're going to create an index.ts file. Oops. Okay, it's got a raw. And there's that. Okay. Now they have a folder called rooms. We'll just copy it as is. We're going to rename my room to something else, because we're not going to call that my room. But for now, I'll just copy it exactly. My room. Let's format. And go here, format. And then there's a schema. We'll go over schemas as well. Maybe not in this exact video, but we will discuss how Colyseus sends state for you in many ways. Room schema. So let's make a folder, schema. Now we're calling this my room state. And format. Okay. Okay, index. Now, can I find module my room? Let's see why. Rooms, my room. Okay. Now I prefer no commas. I know some of you are like your commas. I don't, and I guess sometimes the Colyseus Endel doesn't like commas either, or he just left one out. And single quotes is my preferred. Let's just delete those. And this is Command D that I was pressing, so in VS Code you can highlight one thing, press Command D, and it'll highlight everything, or it'll select everything that's the same. Let's just change that. Listening on port, blah. Okay, so that's good. So that looks good. So we've got our server here in this server folder, which is basically the setup that we have in this example project. Now, when we do npm run server start, we're going to do ts node on source client, source server index.ts. Okay. Now let's try it. npm run start dash server. And there it is. So localhost 2567. So WS is a WebSocket. But we also have /monitor. And you see we have a normal Express server here, if you notice. This right here. We're making a Express server, which is going to give us a REST API. And we have at /Colyseus the Colyseus monitor, which looks like this. So if we go to localhost 2567/Colyseus, we'll get this nice monitor UI. So you can see the connections to your Colyseus server, the rooms created, CPU usage, all that stuff. So this is actually really useful, and it comes standard if you just follow the Colyseus starter project. All right, so now we have that set up. The server is set up. And now we have our client in a client folder, our server in a server folder. Let's make a new shell here. Now we're going to do npm run start. So we have start dash server for the server and start for the Phaser game. So let's see, 61.151. 65.151. Let it do its thing. Okay. All right, so that's still working. Our Colyseus server is up and running too. Let's move this over here. So now that they're both working, so right, this is just setup of our project so that we can have our server and our client in the same code base. So the benefits here, we can share typing files, which you'll probably want to do, as some of your data structures that you're going to be sending from the server to the client, and the client to the server will be shared. And so if you have the same typing files, you can just reuse them, not have to copy them from one project to another. And any other shared code, we're using TypeScript in this project. So if there's any utilities or whatever you need between the client and the server, you can just share them. That's the benefit of writing your client and server in the same language. You can just share a lot of code that would be the same. And in TypeScript's case, you can share the typing files. Okay, so next here, we're actually going to stop this since we need to install the Colyseus client. So let's go, let's just close this. Let's look at these docs. Let's go back. All right, getting started. This is on the server. Now we want to use the JavaScript client. Now we need to do npm install Colyseus.js. So just copy that, go here, let's install Colyseus.js into our project. It'll be added to our package.json. And you'll see right here, Colyseus.js. And then this is how you use it. So let's go here. We're just going to set up this real fast. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a connection to the Colyseus server. We'll print out our ID, and depending on how much time we have left, we'll do some real quick sending messages to the server and back, maybe just key input. So let's go into this hello world scene. We'll just leave the scene as is. Now let's just delete, and let's run this. npm run start. Just clear this out for now. So we can structure this code better after we do this initial proof that everything is working. So here we go in our hello world scene. We're going to import, we'll just do star as Colyseus from Colyseus.js. So be sure you're importing Colyseus.js when you're in the Phaser side, the client side, and not the server Colyseus package. So let's say, we'll call this client, and it's going to be a Colyseus client. And then let's go to init here. We're gonna have this in a different place later. This .client new Colyseus.client, and we are connecting to this WebSocket address, right? Just copy that, put it in here. Okay. And then once we get to create, what we're going to do is join a room. Now, let's close package, close this. So in the Colyseus index, you can also close the terminal. In the Colyseus index, we have got this my room. So that's the name here. And we'll leave that as is now. So that's what we're going to join by, this string right here. And when we do this .client .join, we're going to join my room. So that's my room. That's where it says room name here in the docs. And then where they had this promise, let's make this async. Let's do async. We're going to install a couple of more libraries here to fix some errors, but I'll just show you that too. So it does client.join, and then we're going to get a room. It's the Colyseus room with unknown state, which we will resolve that later. So let's just do console.log room.name. Now, probably you're going to see we're going to get some errors here because we do not have get errors yet, unless I fixed it in this project. Let's do this. since I'm using port 8000 elsewhere here, let's go to port 8001. npm run start, so that we have the same port to use. Great. 8001. These errors show it's still building. These errors shouldn't matter. I think these are from Colyseus, and I'm not exactly sure why they're there. Okay, great. Yes, so the async await would have not worked if we were not in a TypeScript project. In the JavaScript version of this template, you would have to install transform runtime, or runtime transform, can't think of the name right now, for Babel to do it properly. It seems to work in our TypeScript template, which is great. Okay, so that's room.name. Let's bring up the console here. Oh no, regenerate runtime, so we still do need it. Okay. I used to think parser would give me the error. Okay, so we need in regenerator runtime. So if you see an error like this, just put this up here, we're going to need the regenerator runtime package. There's some other ways to resolve this too, I think with Babel's preset env, but for now let's just do it this way. npm install regenerator runtime. So this is going to let us use async await, this syntax here. We've, I think, used it in other projects on this channel, but we definitely prefer using async await to promises. It's just easier to read. So there, we've installed regenerator runtime. Now let's go to main.ts. Let's just import regenerator runtime / runtime. npm run start. Let's go back here. Let's wait for it to build. So that's going. Doing a lot of building and rebuilding here where we usually don't see it since we have the project set up and all that. But when you're setting up a new project, this does happen where you're making changes to how the project structure is and all that stuff. So it's going. Okay, it's done. Refresh. No rooms found with provided criteria. Let's see what we did here. My room, this is just general, the room state. Everything's fine. Now let's go to hello world and let's see where we may have errored here. No rooms found with my room. Make sure this is correct. Yeah, looks right. Nope, that looks right. Let's see. What did we do? Join my room. I don't need any options. Oh. Let's look at the docs for a second here. Join or create. So join or create is what I normally use, but join should work too. Let's see if I make this bigger. Client API, room. No, it's client. Yeah, we're doing client join room. Let's see what this says. Joining existing provided by room name and options, which, oh. Yes, because there's no one in that room. You should use join or create. If you're the first one in there, do join or create. So here's what we got: join or create my room, and then as you can see, it logged out the room name, which is my room. Great. Just make this. This is probably too big. Let's just adjust this project so that we don't have this. Just this with 600. Right, we don't need this game that big. Let's make it 700. Okay, so what we have here is we're joining this room and it's logging out the room name. Now, if you did room.session ID, so this session ID is going to be the ID of the connected players. This is your ID that Colyseus is giving you, and that's this AYX that we have here. Now, if someone else were to join, so I'm going to go here, open a new tab, and join. So you say we have a different ID, this ID, and if we go to the Colyseus monitor, we have one room with 2 clients in it right here. So there's the first tab I have and the second tab I have, and they're both joined on this room together. Now they can send messages to each other, and let's just do that real fast. So basically have a project set up. And what we can do here is in create, so this dot input, init.input dot on Phaser dot input dot events. Let's collapse this dot. Let's say key. Oh no, yeah. Let's just go on. I don't mean the keyboard. Dot keyboard dot on. So I think it's key down. Could be anything. Let's just see what we get for event. That key down. Phaser dot input dot events dot type dot events dot type. Let's see. Dot keyboard dot events. Key down. Okay, there's my keyboard event. Okay. There's my key events. Let's go to sources here in our inspector. Hello world scene. Let's just see what's going on here. Dot events dot key down. Well, yeah, that's fine. Okay. Does it come here? Let's see. It does come here. It registers this key down event. And now why is it not? Let's look at Phaser's docs for a second. Phaser.io. Maybe I have it wrong. Let's go to learn. Now, when you're doing this, you may run into problems like this too. That this seems to happen, or tends to happen. You may have forgotten some exact syntax. What do we want here? Scene input. I want the keyboard. Let's make it bigger. Keyboard. keyboard plugin. Let's go to the keyboard plugin. .on key down, right? Input .keyboard .on. Maybe we can try key down. This should be key down. Okay, breakpoint still works. Okay. So where does this go? Now I want to know where this goes. The key down event. Maybe it's being fired elsewhere. I don't know. We'll have to check that at some point. But okay, let's just use the string here. Okay, so we have event here, and event is a keyboard event. So let's type this. Event.key. Now we have the room, and in the room, let's just room dot. You can just send a message. Do send. Okay, send, and we're going to just call this key down. We're going to send the key code that we just pressed up to the Colyseus server, and then the Colyseus server is going to send that to everyone but ourselves, right? So let's do that. When that happens, and then up here, we can do room.onMessage. Not on join, on message. Now this is the message coming from the server. So we're going to do, let's just call that message key down. You can name this something else. We're going to get a client and a message. And for simplicity, the message is simply going to be the key. So we're not going to add anything to it. So .log message. And what is it complaining about? Type callback. On message type. I want this one. Okay. So on message key down message. Okay. So now when we do input, key input, go to server. Server's gonna do some stuff. We're gonna do that shortly, and then send us back a key down message, and we're gonna just log that right here. Right. Or rather, trust me, it is not null. Okay. So now let's go to our my room. So in my room, we have on message, and that's going to be key down. So this is the name of the message that we're sending up to the server. And just leave that as is. Yep, I have to delete these. Okay. So when we get the key down from the client, so this is the Phaser app, send it up to the Colyseus server. It's going to hit this on message, key down, and the client is going to be the sender, so this first tab, and read that. So what we're going to do is this dot broadcast. So this broadcast is going to be sent to everyone, and the type is going to be key down, and the message is going to be the message we're getting, so we're just passing it right through, but we're going to add an except the sending client. Right, so what we're doing is sending it, broadcasting it back down to everyone except ourselves. If we sent it, we don't need to get it ourselves. So that's it. And so now with the Colyseus setup here with TS Nodejs, you see that it's going to redo the server. Let's get out of there. Okay. Now no one's connected because the server had restarted itself. So we have that. Let's go back here to the hello world. All right, so here we are in here as EK. Go to monitor, just double check. Oh, that was already there. One room. That's the room. We are in there as EKK. New tab, localhost 8001. And we don't need to show the console there, but we'll see there's two people. So where the original tab here is EKK, that's this tab on the left. This tab on the right is HG. So now actually, let's do an inspect. So now we're going to press A. We'll press the key over here and A. So that was the key that I pressed. So now the whole thing just happened. We sent a message from one client up to Colyseus down to the other client. So like from here, we can do PHASER, and we're going to get on the other side Phaser, which is what I typed out. You couldn't tell, but that's what I typed out. So there it is. We're at 36 minutes. So that's the basic setup of a Colyseus server project with a Phaser project. So to recap, we used the arcade Phaser 3 parcel TypeScript template, kept the structure more or less the same. We moved all the original client code, the Phaser code, into a client folder. Then we created a server folder to create the Colyseus server project setup. And we followed the Colyseus getting started guide here for the server side. And we're using the TypeScript example project. And we just took this code and basically copied it into our project here. We had to install some packages, dev dependencies and app dependencies in the package JSON right here, namely Corey's express types, tsnode dev. We probably don't need this since I think Colyseus is not using this. This is leftover. Could probably delete it. But tsnode dev is how we're running the server, and then we needed the Colyseus, the node package for the server, and express and cores. Then on the client side, we installed Colyseus JS for the client, and we added generator runtime for async await. And that is the setup. And then we have a npm script called start server, which does tsnode dev, gives it a different TS config for the server. This is from the example from Colyseus, and we just run that. Going to source server index.ts. So index.ts is the entry point for the server, and main.ts is the entry point for the client or the Phaser game. So that is the setup. Now, in the next video, we're going to start adding some gameplay logic in our Ludo game, and to communicate when one player makes a move so that it can do the logic on the server and then send the results back to all the other clients and that they can do what they need to do, which is very similar to what we already did here. This is the bare bones, the basic foundation of sending an event and then receiving events. And the server simply, when arcade just passes through, but in a more later on, we're going to do some logic here depending on what the message sent to us is as input, do some stuff, and then broadcast back down what the clients should do. Now, we may be doing that in this Colyseus state, which we'll talk about as well in future videos. Now, if you enjoyed this video, do hit like and do subscribe for more videos on using Colyseus for multiplayer games with Phaser 3.